this is not the only time we've ever had an assassination attempt in the history of the United States regarding a president.
I think it's the
Um,
third time, isn't it? The third time?
so it's there've been four to my knowledge, there've been four historically that actually were actual assassinations. Um, Unfortunately. And there's been more than one attempt. You're that much in against what somebody stands for or what they view as far as political beliefs or any beliefs whatsoever that you would want someone killed.
Yes.
And so
That's
that's what gets me to the book I wrote, Disagree Without Disrespect, how to respectfully debate with those who think, believe, and vote differently from you, because this is our culture. This is our world we're in today.
We've curated a vast network of business experts ready to address your company's most pressing challenges. From corporate growth strategy to leadership, marketing strategy, sales strategy, branding, customer relations, technology, AI, IT security, and beyond, we connect you to the best experts for your needs. Reach out to us for more information or schedule a call at grownlearn.org to explore how we can support you. Welcome to Grow and Learn, Curious Minds. Today, my guest is Philip Blackett, a consultant, an author of very interesting books, which we're going to be touching today. He's got a Master's of Divinity degree from the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary and an MBA from the Harvard Business School, and many other additional qualifications and degrees, which I'm not going to enumerate because it's not about, diplomas and certifications. It's about heart-to-heart conversations. It's about learning from each other and growing together in business and in life. And today we have a very interesting, timely topic to talk about, which is very much in line with what Philip Blackett has talked and written about. One of his books is called How to Respectfully Disagree with Those Who Think, Believe, and Vote Differently from You. And in light of the current what just happened yesterday, was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday, the attempted assassination of President Trump. I think it's very timely to talk about how to communicate with each other respectfully, how to express our opinions, because the opinions I've been reading of people are really disrespectful. Like some people are saying, why did they miss? I don't know, all kinds of comments. And it's some experts actually say this is going to lead to a civil war. It's a very precarious situation. So I'm welcoming Philip Blackett. Hi, Philip. Welcome.
Hey, Zarina. Thanks so much for having me. Happy to be here with you.
Very glad you joined and very glad you're open to discussing this so sensitive topic. And not only in the US, you're based in the US, but I mean, it's reverberating throughout the whole world. It's like we live in a global village. So everybody's focused on this subject right now of what actually happened. People are discussing how to respectfully disagree. I know you have a step-by-step system, but let's give it a bit of a larger overview of what is this book all about and what is the umbrella concept of the book that we should set our mindset towards when talking to other people that we disagree with or that they disagree with us.
Yeah, so just to take a step back, Serena, even beyond like the five-step framework in the book, even in light of current events of what unfortunately happened this past weekend with regards to the assassination attempt on President Trump, when I think about what happened, and I did take some time to process and reflect that, a couple things come to mind. One, this is not the only time we've ever had an assassination attempt in the history of the United States regarding a president.
I think it's the third time, isn't it? The third time?
So there've been four, to my knowledge, there've been four historically that actually were actual assassinations, unfortunately. And there's been more than one attempt that, fortunately for us, and unfortunately for the person trying to commit that crime, did not result into an actual assassination.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The most recent attempt beyond this past weekend, I believe, was around 1981 with President Reagan, Ronald Reagan. But all that being said, one of the things I reflect on is the thought of just this one question. What would prompt somebody to be that much charged emotionally that even if they disagree with somebody and what they view as far as politically, what they stand for, to get to the point that they would climb up on a building, expose themselves to danger, expose other people to danger for shooting at somebody? What would prompt them to take that type of act?
But we are
What
assuming here that the person is acting out of his own will. I mean, there are many suppositions that this might be some sort of a mind control situation. It could be an inside job. It could be, we assume that it's this one person, but the story behind, I mean, there are conspiracy theories, a lot of which are turning out to be true after some time. And we don't really know what happened. This is the hard part to assess. And that's what I think gives also a lot of conflicts because people have their own convictions of how the world works.
So to your point, right? I can't speculate because a lot of this is so fresh,
Yes.
and a lot of people are uncovering it on a time to time, minute by minute basis. All I can say is what we've seen, right? Somebody took action towards killing another person,
right,
that was in political office. And whatever the reason may be, the thought that comes off is whether is that person that was trying to make that assassination attempt, or to what you mentioned before, Zarina, as far as in the aftermath of it, you had many people on social media, in real life, face to face in some communities, asking themselves, you had one job. How could you miss?
right,
or be disappointed or upset that it was an assassination attempt that was a failure and was not successful in killing President Trump. Like, if we just take time to think about that, like, that's actual human beings having that type of thought, which makes me think to myself,
it's scary.
You're
What is this world? Yeah.
You're that much in against what somebody stands for or what they view as far as political beliefs or any beliefs whatsoever, that you would want someone killed.
Yes.
And so that's what gets me to the book I wrote, Disagree Without Disrespect, how to respectfully debate with those who think, believe, and vote differently from you, because this is our culture. This is our world we're in today.
Yeah.
That we have not just one person, but we have many people that are of the mindset of thinking that if you are against what I believe, you are an enemy. And to an extreme point of view, you being an enemy of mine means I have to annihilate you. I have to take you out. We can't just debate the idea at hand. It's the point where someone has to no longer be living. And it best not be me, it has to be you. So that sort of zero sum, absent of any diversity of thought, it is basically the only way I can win is not by actually proving that my idea is better. No, I have to take you out of the entire debate situation to begin with. There will be no debate.
In this case, somehow, excuse me the interruption, but it resembles so much a religious war. There's so much conviction that people are becoming fanatic about it. It's not there's no clear reasoning anymore. Yeah.
It's to the point where it's just, can we actually engage in healthy relationships with people we disagree with? And that's becoming more of a question now than before. And the answer I have is we can. We just have to better understand how to best do it. And that's where the book came from.
I do want to know about the book. Just one last observation is that in the day of the assassination event, a lot of social media as organizations suppressed any coverage of the topic. So, for example, LinkedIn, that I respect clearly a lot because I post a lot of my content on LinkedIn, there was no feed on LinkedIn regarding the attempted assassination. There's no feed on Facebook, like complete suppression. After a few hours only, they allowed this information to be shared around.
So to your point, you're talking about whether Facebook or LinkedIn and that sort, or just any other media outlets, like I've seen a number of different media outlets cover that event much differently on the onset when it happened versus in the aftermath afterwards.
Yeah,
And so,
I find it even shameful. Popping sounds, and the president was escorted off stage. Like, what is this coverage of the actual happening?
well, here's the thing, right? This is kind of part of the world we live in now. There is such a rush for media outlets, news teams to get out in front with something to get you to watch them, read their article, watch their show, go on their website, click on their link, right? That we'll just put whatever we can just to get somebody's attention. We don't know the whole, truth about what just happened. We don't know all the facts, right? We just see something, we got to put something out there, and whatever headline comes up is loud popping. Yeah, loud popping can come from a number of different things. It can come from fireworks, or it can come from gunshots. Either one's more lethal than the other, I would imagine. But that's an important point. Words matter, that how you share that headline to people can come off a certain way. So you have the risk of getting the story wrong, right? Or being looked at shamefully by others because you didn't take the time to figure out what actually happened before reporting. Or you have some networks, like you said before, say, hey, I don't even want to take a chance. I'm just not going to even say anything. And that
They
could be
don't.
good or bad, but you still have an absence of any reporting yourself or allowing other people to talk about it.
Right. Yeah, it was a suppression of posting and reposting information, because on LinkedIn specifically, even news outlets like the Daily Telegraph and stuff like that, because I checked a few news outlets, they had very few comments and likes, which means their content was not promoted, it was not circulated around.
Yeah, absolutely. Like social networks are mini news coverage teams, right? So they have a sense that they want content out there for people to engage with, to stay on their platforms and networks. And at the same time, there's also a tight rope they're walking on too,
Yeah.
of, what type of content, how do we decide what gets promoted, what doesn't, what's truthful, what's not, or what can compel somebody to feel even more engaged, even more emotionally upset, to the point of doing something violent. So there's a huge responsibility, and something that many of these networks and companies have to take very seriously, because this is the type of political climate we're in right now.
Let's talk about the book. When did you first, did it dawn on you that it's time to write such a book?
Yeah, so it actually happened around the 4th of July here in America, last year. So essentially what happened was that my family, I have a wife, 2 kids. I invited my sister, her husband, her 2 kids, and my mother, to come by and spend 4th of July with us. And so in the living room, it was my sister, myself, and my mother. We were having a conversation, more so between my sister and I. And I'll be honest with you, Zarina, I don't remember exactly what we talked about. But what I do know is we were on opposite sides of the spectrum on this one particular issue. And so while we were engaging in this debate, my mom jumps in. And I would have thought maybe to choose one side or another. She did neither. She basically came in like a referee, but without the zebra shirt and the whistle, and said, listen, stop. We're not going to have this debate. Let's talk about something else. Now, that's why, and to paraphrase, she was basically saying, listen, we got fireworks to watch later on tonight for the 4th of July. I have no intention, though, of seeing fireworks happen right now in the living room between you two. Now, while I appreciate the intent behind what she was trying to accomplish as a mother, hey, let's preserve the peace here. Let's have a nice, safe family gathering. Nobody gets hurt. Nobody's feelings get, hurt and that sort. We can look at it with fond memories later on. But the impact was, it was a lost opportunity. It was a lost opportunity that, for my sister and I, we don't see each other often. And so this was a time we get to see each other and talk. And I would say, Zarina, in a time of social media, of text messages, smartphones, email, some conversations are better had in person versus those other mediums. And this was one of those type of conversations, but because we couldn't have it out of fear of disagreement and what that disagreement could potentially lead to, we all of a sudden just said, we're going to silence each other from this conversation. And so what came in my mind was, okay, if that happened with me around the 4th of July, I wonder how many other people, whether in my community, locally, or nationally, or even globally, are having those same issues where they want to share something important to them, to somebody else, but they're fearful that if there's a view that someone else disagrees with, how are they going to get treated afterwards? Am I going to get the cold shoulder from loved ones? Are people not going to talk to me anymore at work? Are people going to curse me out on social media? Am I going to get unfriended, unfollowed, maybe swipe left on a dating app just because I have a different point of view? No, that's not the way it should go. And so that's what prompted me to say, hey, let's come up with something that we can teach others, come up with this 5-step framework, which became this book, Disagree Without Disrespect, how to respectfully debate with those who think, believe, and vote differently from you.
This is so needed, and also not only politically, but also regarding the divide in general around COVID. It appeared around COVID, but I have the feeling that it started at this point and it's just cracking open more and more. Yeah,
absolutely. It's one of those things that people are getting at breaking points. And if we don't know how to basically navigate disagreement in a respectful and healthy way, you're going to likely do it in an unhealthy, disrespectful way, which could include name calling or animosity that could lead to, unfortunately, like this weekend, violence towards somebody else.
Yeah. Let's talk about the book and the 5-step process.
Absolutely. So the first step I would teach people on this, step number 1, we need to separate the idea or belief from the identity of the believer. You see, we just talked about that not too long ago. Depending on the idea, depending on the person you talk to, that person may be so intertwined with that idea. It becomes who he or she is. It is their identity, right? We were talking about holy wars not too long ago, right? So it's much harder to talk about the idea if that person's so tightly wound behind it, where if I disagree with the idea, it comes off like I'm disagreeing with who you are, right?
Yeah.
If I critique that idea, now it sounds like I'm criticizing who you are, Zarina, and I'm hating who you are. That's not true. I'm just talking about the idea at hand, but you may take it defensively to the point where now you raise your guard up. You may become more aggressive towards me. That may start in name calling or everything but the debate itself on the issue at hand. And things could get ugly very quickly. But it wouldn't happen, though, if we learn how to separate the idea from the identity of the believer.
How can we do that?
One, I would say, is just recognize that. And you recognize it for yourself, but you also communicate that to the other person. Where essentially, Zarina, like, I know you're very much, an advocate for this one idea. And you and I clearly are on different points of view on it. I understand. I respect that. I just want to talk about the idea at hand, just to better understand where you're coming from. Hopefully you learn my perspective as well. If it comes off where one person sees the other side as better now after talking about it, great. But that's not really my aim here. Sometimes it helps to disarm the person so they don't feel like they have to be on the defensive. They don't have to be on the guard and feel like they can't trust having a conversation with you. Because that's what a lot of people were feeling like. It's like, if you don't agree with me, I don't trust having that conversation with you because I don't know if I'm going to get hurt in the process. I don't know if I have to defend myself. It's probably better we just don't talk about it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that leads into what I would say step two would be. Step two is basically saying we can disagree with the idea or belief and still love the believer. It's a play off of what I learned in church growing up, where we're called to hate the sin and love the sinner.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, two things can be true. Zarina, I do not agree with your point of view on this one issue, and I still respect and love you as my friend.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It
Because if you're
reminds
able,
me, it reminds me of personal development tactics for children, where you say, where you don't, not only for children, actually, they apply across the line at any age, but I specifically have learned it for children, where you don't call them names or tell them you are such and such, but rather you judge the activity or the behavior that they exhibit if it's not correct. Yeah.
yeah, and whether it's with kids or young adults, adolescents, or older adults now, like it seems like that's something that's just a good thing to do just with all human beings.
Mm-hmm,
Where
mm-hmm,
you can say, listen, I like you, I respect and love you. I do not like what you did. I
mm-hmm,
do not appreciate what you said. I do not agree with your point of view, right?
mm-hmm,
If people can feel comfortable in that tension, then it's a lot better for us to have these type of conversations because even if I disagree with you, you at least know from my vantage point that I still respect and love you.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's not conditional on whether or not we agree. Like my love for my kids is not contingent on whether or not I agree with them.
Yeah. So the
That's
first
the
step
same.
is, excuse me. Yeah, please.
No,
Please.
and I was about to say that's the same with my wife. Because think about it. If my wife and I staying together, we've been together for over 8 years now. If the only way I could do that is if we agree on everything, we wouldn't have made it past the honeymoon stage,
That's right. Mm-hmm.
let alone planning a wedding. Because when you're trying to figure out which church to go to, which hors d'oeuvre, or which person to invite, there's bound to be disagreements. So
Mm-hmm.
if you had to agree with someone on everything, and that's the only way you can be with somebody, then you're not going to be with them very long. But yet and still, you have many couples being together for 5, 10, 20, 50 years or so. And I can almost guarantee you they don't agree with their spouse on everything.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing that comes top of mind is, okay, marriage is the most intimate of relationships, the closest of relationships with one person for the rest of their lives. If those two can still be together despite disagreeing on multiple things throughout the time they're together, what can we learn from that and apply to the relationships we have with our friends,
Mm-hmm.
our colleagues, our fellow classmates, those that are in the neighborhood, those who were just coming across the first time? Like there's lessons to be learned here where you can truly disagree with someone's views and still respect and love that person in a healthy relationship.
Mm-hmm. So the first thing is to separate the belief and the person in your mind, the topic of discussion and the person. That's step number one, just summing it up and for my own
Sure.
understanding as well. And step number two is to actually declare it, to disarm them, make them feel comfortable in the conversation. Is that correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, fantastic. Let's continue.
So when you've done those two steps, Serena, you set the groundwork, you set the stage. Now you're in a place where you actually can debate the issue at hand just based on its merit. And what do I mean by merit? I mean, we're talking about facts. What's the logic, the research, the analysis, the performance, the reviews, the results, right? Try to keep it as objective as you possibly can, an apples to apples comparison if we can. What we don't want to engage in is name calling.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to make things personal. We don't want to get involved in this over drawn out emotional response that has people feeling awkward to engage or continue in the conversation because now I'm looking for Kleenexes to wipe your eyes because I simply said I don't agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can get to the point where we're just going off of more of a meritocracy here, your idea versus mine. Let's hash it out. Let's talk about it just based on its merit.
Mm-hmm. And yet there are so many, the sources of information, the pure data is very often biased in the core. So it's not the interpretation, but the data itself is already biased in the way it's compiled and even statistically analyzed afterwards. So,
But you can at least say, hey, here's the data here. And if someone says, I don't know, let's look at this. How was this like carried out? Okay, let's have a conversation about that.
That's right.
You know, the data, does it stand? Does it not? If it doesn't stand, okay, just like in any courtroom, then scratch the evidence, strike it off. You know, look at something else. Like that's part of debate. Like I present something to you, you may disagree with it, you may point out its flaws, you point it out to me, and once it's clear, then that should go away. You move on to the next point then.
Sounds good to me.
So step 4 is basically once you actually had that debate, you're focusing just on the merit itself. We should do what we learned when we were younger, when we played sports. At the end of a game, win or lose, what did our teams do at the end of an athletic contest? We shook hands. We said good game. We got some pizza afterwards, right? It's the thing that good sportsmanship was something we learned when we were younger. And as I talked to you about before, this is one of those concepts that still applies as we get older. Good sportsmanship is still needed and appreciated when we're adults, having debates and conversations, because honestly, no one likes a sore loser and no one likes a sore winner either. So if you're able to say, you know what, Zarina, thank you so much for talking to me about this. I didn't know why this was so important to you, but I appreciate you sharing your perspective with me because you quite honestly didn't have to do it. And I appreciate you trusting me with that for me to better understand. That at least shows that sense that whether or not I agree with you ultimately, or you came to my side, or maybe we agreed to disagree still, or maybe some third alternative we weren't even expecting to begin with that came out just from us having the conversation, regardless of which, we're still able to respectfully move forward together. And that leads on to my final step. At the end of it, you can still respect that person and appreciate his or her point of view. Even if you disagree, hey, chalk it up as diversity of thought here. Okay. Diversity goes beyond what you see on the outside. And so what I would say on top of that is keep the door open for continued conversation. A debate shouldn't have to be a one-off transaction. This should be something that, hey, we had a conversation. Okay, there's this thing that's coming up on TV later on. Why don't we watch it together and continue the conversation? I'd be open to your thoughts there too. Or maybe we can have a coffee and engage a little bit further. What you're trying to do is you're trying to build a relationship still, because hopefully at the end of it all, the relationship between you and me should be more important than who's right and who's wrong.
I like that very much, Philip. And I was wondering while you were speaking whether this it requires some level of intelligence and it requires some sobriety of thought. And when people are very emotionally charged, which is your first step, the separation of this emotional charge, the belief from the actual person. But if you don't manage to completely separate this in your mind, or the person may bring it up again and again during the conversation, is there something that you would advise people to do for because when you deal with somebody who is not readily open to discuss on your level of, let's say, intelligence or even desirability to meet you at this level, but you still respect them, you just see that they're maybe not thinking clearly at the moment, colored by emotion. Is there some tip where you'd say this is how you react in this situation?
Yeah, so I think part of it is thinking, we're basically swimming upstream on this one. this level of instruction and thought and concept of how we approach debate. This is not what the majority of people engage with, right? The majority of us engage with debate like we do with our sports in terms of, your team versus my team. I can't stand you. I hate you. Rah,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Even outside of our conversations arena, like the rest of the world is being educated, influenced, and conditioned on how to go about disagreements with one another. And it's clearly not the framework I just talked about,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what happens is that for somebody that comes across this framework or reads my book, there's a evangelism component to this where basically if you include this as part of how you engage with other people, some people are not going to know what this is. They're gonna be like, that's odd. I was expecting you to, cut my head off or curse me out
Mm-hmm.
or, be violent towards me. And you're not doing that. And you're actually including a space for yourself to share with people and educate with people. Hey, listen, I don't mind having this conversation with you. I don't mind having this debate with you and telling you why I think the way I think. At the same time, I also know that I don't want this to get ugly. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to get involved with name calling because I realize from personal experience, once you get involved in name calling, there is no debate.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't happen. I'm not going to waste my time there, and I'm not going to disrespect you or me by doing that.
Yeah, that's a
So,
very good point. Mm-hmm.
so often what happens is you have to serve as a teacher
Yeah.
for other people in the midst of having that conversation or debate,
Mm-hmm.
teaching them a better way to engage with one another and to navigate inevitable disagreement.
Mm-hmm. This is fantastic, especially in light of current debates, the conversation that we started with the assassination attempt of President Trump. Is there anything in particular or specific that needs to be said regarding the book and the applications towards this case, or does it apply across the line?
Yeah,
Any.
so the reason why the subtitle is How to Respectfully Debate with Those Who Think, Believe, and Vote Differently from You is because this applies to any interpersonal relationship you have. Because we just talked about marriages, people
Mm-hmm.
that have been married for many, many years, right? They didn't always agree with everything, whether it's who they vote for, who they worship, or what they're going to eat for dinner tonight, right? It's like you're going to have disagreements. If you're going to have disagreements there, you're going to have disagreements among your friends, your colleagues, your children, anybody you come across. And it could be not just politically speaking. It's not just about voting, how you vote that comes up as a disagreement. I mentioned believe,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mentioned think, right? You get with somebody long enough, I can assure you, you're going to find something you disagree on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a question of whether or not you disagree with somebody. The question is, how do you navigate that disagreement when it happens? And that's what this book is about. It's showing you a framework that applies beyond just politics. It's about any sort of disagreement. If you care about the relationship more than proving that you're right, you're superior than the other person, then this is a framework that can be helpful regardless of what the actual topic of disagreement is all about.
Again, revolving around the emotional states of people and how you cultivate this in yourself. And clearly, when it's a personal relationship, you have an interest to keep this. It's an important relationship to you. But when you're debating something online with people that are unknown, you're still inciting hatred or sharing your hatred and not managing your emotions accordingly or in the best way. So and again, it revolves around the previous question, which was, does it require some level of emotional development or some level of intelligence for
Emotional
people
intelligence,
to
yeah.
exactly, no, emotional intelligence and general intelligence to be able to engage in such a conversation, because the process is wonderful that you're sharing, and clearly it will help people that are already emotionally intelligent. But what about people that don't have the level of self-reflection, and maybe it's difficult for them, or they're not willing to separate their emotions? They're so much engulfed in the story that they don't
So
see the value in the person.
Right. So it comes down to 2 points for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
The first one is it is an opportunity to teach somebody, right? We didn't
Right.
come out the womb knowing how to be emotionally intelligent. Someone had to teach us how to go about being self-aware, noticing what's happening inside of us, figure out how do we respond off of that, be able to note that in observation of other people and know how to respond to them and their emotions. Someone taught us that, and
Mm-hmm.
we could be the teacher to somebody else if that's what we want to do. That's one option. The second one is if somebody is just absolutely resolute in calling you every name in the book
Mm-hmm.
and wants to, increase the volume of their voice to where it's threatening, where it's uncomfortable, where you feel like you're not safe and you're not comfortable having this conversation, you can always opt out of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You can always say, you know what? I don't mind having this conversation, but I want it to be respectful. If that's something that you can do with me, let's have it. If not, I respectfully decline. I can opt out. Don't worry about it. Let's not have the conversation. You move on.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said before, once you get involved with name calling, now you can't tell who's the wrong person here. You're
Yeah.
just saying you got to have standards to say, hey, you know, I don't mind having this conversation. Here's what I'm asking of you in the midst of that conversation. If we can do that, great. If that sounds like something you can't do, that's not a problem. I just choose to not have those type of conversations unless we have these certain standards.
Mm-hmm. Philip, this was a wonderful conversation so far, and I know that you have a lot of other topics that you're proficient in, and you've written books on AI helping small businesses to grow. Is that correct? What is the AI book
Yep.
called?
So one of the books is called Future Proof: How to Adopt and Master Artificial Intelligence to Secure Your Job and Career. Another book is called The Unfair Advantage: How Small Business Owners Can Use Artificial Intelligence to Grow Sales, Outsmart the Competition, and Build Their Dream Businesses Without Breaking the Bank.
Yeah. So I'd love to direct people towards these resources, and I would like to invite you for a second continuation of this talk to talk about how we can use AI, because at the moment there's so much charge on this particular topic around the attempted assassination and what we talked about right now, that I have the feeling we'll dilute it if we were to talk about AI. But I would really like to hear your thoughts and knowledge on how we can improve our businesses.
Absolutely. I would love that second opportunity to have another conversation about it with you.
Fantastic. Where can people find your books and get a hold of you? You're also consulting.
For any of my books, whether it's Disagree Without Disrespect, How to Respectfully Debate with Those Who Think, Believe, and Vote Differently from You, or any other books I've written, go to Amazon.com and you can look it up either by the book title, which can be kind of long, I'll admit, or you can just go off my name, Philip Blackett, PhilipBlackett. You'll see that book along with my other books. And you can also connect with me either on social media. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Or you go on one of my websites, either philipblackett.com, or for business owners, dreambusinessmakeover.com.
That's a fantastic URL. Dream Business Makeover.
Absolutely.
Philip, thank you so much. I really appreciate your flexibility in your, the adjustment of the topic towards current events. I think it was really useful, and I hope the right people who are able to assimilate this information are hearing it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity, Zarina.
My pleasure. Thank you for listening to Grow and Learn. We hope that you found our podcast informative, engaging, and inspiring. Our mission is to help you keep growing and learning, and we hope that our conversations and insights have provided you with practical advice and useful perspectives. If you're looking for personalized support and guidance to help you achieve your personal or professional growth objectives, I offer a range of services to help. As a trusted management partner and mentor, I work with businesses in the process of transformation, looking for new streams of business, as well as M&A. With an extensive professional network of experts and mentors, I can bring on board the right person or team based on the specific needs of the company I'm working with. To learn more about the services I offer and how I can help you achieve your goals, visit my website at grownlearn.org. You can also reach out to me via email or social media. I'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this episode of Grow and Learn, please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review. Your feedback is important to us and it helps us to continue to create content that is relevant and valuable to our listeners. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to sharing more insights and perspectives with you in the future.